The Harmonic Convergence, The Untold Story, Chapter 3, Meeting Maxim in Egypt. Ra broke the reverie that we were all enjoying with an announcement that Venus had now come into view. I lurched forward to peer out of my flight deck window, and my heart skipped a beat to see this glorious planet. "She looks so beautiful," I exclaimed. "She certainly is," said Ra. "Venus could be described as the Goldilocks planet of the solar system, as in 5th density. She is watery, humid, subtropical, and forested." "Oh," I observed, "and she has mainly oceans." "Yes," Ra replied. "She has small groups of islands with many species of abundant and beautiful life, and an average temperature that only slightly varies from the poles to the equator, 24 to 32 degrees Celsius. Sarah looked into my eyes, a slight frown across her face, her hands clasped together in front of her. "Do you know what happened to Venus in the times of Earth's future?" she inquired. I thought for a moment. My memory is still sometimes vague," I replied. "However, I remember something. Let me see." I closed my eyes. "Ah, yes! She was taken by the Dark Ones." As I said these words aloud, my hands began to shake, and a flood of tears rolled down my cheeks. "Oh, are you all right?" said Samira, and she reached over, her face full of concentration, to wipe my tears away from my face. Samira's beautiful gesture made me laugh. "Thank you, Samira. I feel much better now." "The Dark Ones did take Venus," said Ra, "and once again mind-controlled humanity in order to carry out their agenda. On 3rd density Earth, there was a war, and it was called the Vietnam War." "Yes," I encouraged. "I have a memory of the Vietnam War." "The Vietnam War," continued Ra, "was not the battle against the global movement of communism that America declared was its enemy. There was a limited war that was being waged in Vietnam. However, it was purposefully ineffectual. All of the resources for the Vietnam War," said Sarah, "were actually moved to Venus. The helicopters, tanks, and personnel were all transported to Venus from jump rooms and portals." "My goodness," I declared. "How did the soldiers not know that they were being tricked? Wouldn't they realize that they were in a jump room?" "The soldiers went through familiarization and briefing for several days," said NyShaRa, who was obviously also familiar with the story, "and then they were ready to go out into the jungles, supposedly fighting the communists. To be transported to Venus, they were put inside a troop-carrying fuselage so that it felt as though they were flying there. The fuselage would shake a few times. They may have had good sound recordings of engines roaring, and then 3 or 4 hours later, after a simulated bumpy landing, the doors would open. The first thing that the soldiers experienced was the dark of night and a tropical heat, and then they were told that they were close to the front line. Most of the land on 5th density Venus is tropical, said Dul-Kar-Ra. So the American military conscripts believed that they were on maneuvers in Vietnam. Also, most conscripts never physically saw or experienced directly their enemy. The Venusians have Lyrian-based DNA and arrived on Venus as part of their expansion. While some were aligned with the Nordic Pleiadian DNA, others were aligned with some of the Syrian races and had darker skin. These particular Syrian races are smaller in frame and stature, well, similar to the Vietnamese. So when they were seen, the human mind sees what it wants to see and perceived this race as Vietnamese. It was very convincing. However, said NyShaRa, despite the Venusians' efforts to vehemently defend their planet, in the end they were defeated. How did they defend themselves? I asked. I imagine that the Venusians were peaceful and not militarily armed. The Venusians were peaceful, said NyShaRa. However, when it came to an annihilation, they had to defend themselves. They seized arms from skirmishes with the human soldiers and used them to defend themselves. In the end, however, the Dark Ones resorted to toxic chemical warfare. I held my hand to my heart. So they killed the Venusians with chemical substances? It was called Agent Orange, said Dul-Kar-Ra. It is a highly toxic and carcinogenic chemical defoliant and was specifically designed to deforest the areas that the Venusians were defending. It was Agent Orange that wiped out most of the Venusians. The Venusians resisted the invasion with all of their might, said NyShaRa. However, after a 12-year campaign, they did eventually have to succumb to the military onslaught. Isn't it amazing that to finance this war, said Dul-Kar-Ra, the military-industrial complex, mainly in the USA, used 3rd density Earth's monetary system. All of the armament, helicopters, tanks and missiles, the deceit and betrayal towards the military personnel and all on Earth, as well as the enormous death toll, were disguised as what is known as the Vietnam War. And, of course, said Sa-Ra, this is just one example of mind control. The small nation of Vietnam could have been taken militarily in days or weeks by the Americans, as they are known as the greatest superpower on Earth. And yet, most of 3rd density humanity believe what they have been told. The Vietnam War is an example that can be applied to almost all of Earth's history. An overwhelming feeling of grief overtook my entire body. I bent over, and both of my hands over my face, I began to sob. Oh my goodness. I was in that war, I said. NyShaRa and Sa-Ra rushed to comfort me, holding me, stroking my arms, and sending me love. Yes, Samira, we know, said Sarah. We were there too. I raised my head and saw that Samira and Cinderella were standing together, holding hands and weeping also. We all went to them, and together we all hugged. It felt important to feel my feelings, to feel my grief, and let it go. Letting go of the feelings that are trapped inside our body at the moment that we are feeling them is essential in the process of ascension. Perhaps I had also returned to a fifth density body to release some of the feelings that were still trapped inside me. After I had composed myself, I had many more questions for my beautiful light family. What happened after the Venusians were annihilated, I said. It may come as no surprise, said Dulkar, that not only do the off-planetary Dark Ones live in a luxurious, high-technological lifestyle on Venus, so do many of future Earth's two-party political leaders, the upper dark echelon, international corporation executives, as well as the British royal family. They spend very little time on Earth. They only put in an appearance on Earth when they are directed to do so, and they have portals and jump rooms from many locations on Earth, including from their military establishments. These portals and jump rooms, said Sarah, take these individuals directly to the Venus that exists in Earth's future, with ultra-modern cities, luxury houses and hotels, super yachts, huge shopping malls, vacation resorts, and designer clothes and furniture stores. The AI and transhumanism that is the objective for future Earth by the Dark Ones is fully installed and up and running on Venus, with all of its social controls and a digital banking system. I peered out of my flight deck window at Venus once again. Here she was, pristine and glorious on this fifth dimensional timeline, where Venusians were living in contentment and abundance. This was one of the reasons that we were on our mission: to help humanity to create a new timeline so that they could avoid the impending annihilation that the Venusians had had to endure. Were there any survivors of the Vietnam War? I inquired. The survivors of that war, said Dulkar, who are high fifth density Venusians, are on future Earth working towards the Earth's transformation. Those survivors, Samira, are on this freighter right now, he continued. Those survivors are us. We all sat in silence, remembering our lives as Venusians on Venus, some of us weeping, and all knowing that we will never give up. We will never stop bringing the frequency of love, truth, and knowledge to humanity. And now I can see the Mother, Gaia. Mother, how wonderful to see you again. I turned to Sarah with tears in my eyes, and together we clasped each other's hands. Oh, Sarah! I can see Sarah's face through my tear-filled eyes, and I can see that she is weeping also. I looked back at Gaia, and I could see her toroids plunging into the South Pole, an electric, iridescent vortex of colours and light that feed her with prime creator energy. The toroid in her south pole was surrounded by beautiful green forests. We have, therefore, just now crossed a timeline, and rather than being post the destruction of Taymat, we are pre the destruction of Taymat. At this time, most of Gaia is land and her climate is temperate. So, I inquired, now we are on a timeline that is 13,000 years before Christianity's version of Christ, and Gaia is therefore a fifth density planet. That is right, said Dulkar-Ra. My body is upright and alert as we approach my destination, Egypt. I look down from the flight deck window and can see the Mediterranean coast, the pyramids and the two Sphinx, Cairo, the Nile, and the red Sinai terrain. I can also see the geoglyphs that stretch out across the land as far as the eye can see. What beautiful geoglyphs, I exclaimed. Aren't they stunning? Dulkar-Ra replied. The images of animals, people, and shapes are a signature or a calling card left by different ET races to say who they are and where they have come from, as in the Nazca lines in the north of Peru in South America. The lines have been created by the same technology as the crop circles that are imprinted into the fields in England and Europe in Earth's future. We touched down onto the landing station just east of the Giza Plateau, and Dulkar-Ra swung around in his chair, his usual beautiful smile lighting up his face. Did you know that below these landing stations there are caverns and networks kilometers in length? No, I did not, I replied. Ships, freighters, and other equipment are serviced or repaired in these underground caverns, he continued. The Giza Plateau has been an interstellar space station for many thousands of years. NyShaRa and I prepared to leave the freighter and say goodbye to our light family. It was almost painful to say goodbye. Shama-Ra hugged me tightly around my waist, and Cinderella, now in Dulkar-Ra's arms, leaned over to kiss me on the cheek. After embracing one another warmly, amidst tears and exclamations of delight, NyShaRa and I pulled ourselves away and embarked another vehicle that transported us to our luxury accommodation. The next day, NyShaRa and I felt excited to explore the area. I cast my eyes over the three pyramids before me: Khufu, the Great Pyramid, and Khafre and Menkuri, and I can feel the magnitude of their frequency and vitality. Khufu was completed some time ago, said NyShaRa, and the other two pyramids, as you can see, are now being erected. They are absolutely beautiful, I replied. NyShaRa pointed to Khufu. At the top of the pyramid there is a crystal cap that is covered in pure gold. Oh, stunning! I exclaimed. Taymat, a huge watery planet that is suspended in the sky, is lighting up the crystal cap that is covered in gold, as well as the polished limestone on the pyramids. Taymat was the fourth planet orbiting Earth's central sun, and its rotational path was between Earth and Mars. The mass of Taymat was 100 times that of Gaia, and it appeared in the sky to be similar to the size of Gaia's central sun. As it was a watery planet, Taymat acted like a mirror reflecting the sun's light. "Doesn't Taymat look glorious?" I observed. "Beautiful," agreed NyShaRa. "The reptilians and many other races inhabit Taymat." "Yes, most of the reptilians are beautiful beings and seeded by the Charistus," I replied. "Some of the reptilians on Taymat are amphibious and therefore also aquatic," said NyShaRa. "They can breathe with gills under the water. They do not have technology, however, they are evolved." NyShaRa and I admired Taymat for some time and then turned our attention to the environment that was surrounding us. One of the many branches of the twisting and turning Nile had carved a majestic passage through the red terrain, and a network of canals, freshwater marshes and lakes all crossed in and out and around one another. There were flat-bottom boats and sailboats, all different shapes and colours, anchored within the grand entranceway or tied up to the pier next to the pyramids. It is in this moment, while viewing the grand entranceway, that the boats trigger a memory of the family on the freighter. Dulka is Maxim, the friend who I am about to meet, and Sarah is myself. On the freighter, they are existing in a parallel universe or on another timeline to the one where I presently have my focused attention awareness. As all timelines intercept one another and exist on many timelines throughout the universe, it is possible to meet yourself as timelines are all occurring simultaneously. I recall a timeline where Dulka and Sarah are living on a small river freighter with a single fore and after-rigged mast. We are merchants and we travel and sell our wares in between the Euphrates and the Tigris. The Euphrates flows through Mesopotamia in what is present-day Iraq and joins the Tigris in the Persian Gulf. I can see the water splaying over the bow of the boat. I can feel the wind in my hair, and Dulka is at the helm, squinting in the morning sun. We are taking our spices, fabrics, and artifacts from one destination to the other. We are nomadic, for some souls seek continuity, and others are adventurers. As I bring my attention back to Egypt, the vegetation surrounding the pyramids is magnificent to behold. The botanical gardens are tropical, lush, and burgeoning with life, and the colours in the flora are iridescent with light. In this pre-dynastic or Paleolithic Egypt, explained NyShaRa, the Middle East is wet and subtropical. When the seasons are dry, however, the vegetation relies on the rise and flooding of the Nile. The Nile has changed course many times throughout Gaia's existence. Oh my! These trees are beautiful! I reached up to touch the leaves and berries on the branches. Oh, there are eucalyptus, sycamore, juniper, tamarind and jacaranda trees, as well as many species of palm, I declared. Yes, said NyShaRa, the gardens are beautifully cared for, and this unbelievably exotic sanctuary truly is a Garden of Eden. And look! I felt like a child exploring the physical world for the first time. Ostrich, pheasants and flamingos are inhabiting the gardens, I laughed. And those parrots with their multicolored plumage, they are screeching so loudly as they decimate the fruit. The bazaar is spilling over with effervescent people of many different species, cultures and ethnicities. The smell of spice is pungent in the air. Kilim rugs and artifacts are displayed on walls and tables, and sumptuous delicacies on golden trays tempt every passerby. Many of the women wear a sheath dress or kalaris and fine linen cloaks, while the men wear linen skirts with a sash and sheer blouses with intricately pleated sleeves. The children laugh as they chase one another through the narrow, dusty streets, sometimes tipping over a barrel or a pot as they duck and dive beneath the tables. Well, I think I will explore the bazaar, said NyShaRa. I am sure that you would like to see Maxim once again on your own. I smiled at NyShaRa in appreciation and walked towards the pyramids. At the pyramids, hundreds of men were constructing kafre and menkuri. They were pulling ropes, sweat glistening on their bodies as they worked the pulleys to move the stones. In Earth's future, it is claimed that these men are slaves. However, no slaves exist in this loving, cooperative energy. Samira! I turn to face the architect of the pyramids, and I am immediately taken by his rugged yet exuberant appearance. He has blonde, tousled hair, piercing green eyes, and a leathery skin that has been bronzed by the sun. He is wearing the traditional linen trousers with a sash, but no shirt, revealing his sculptured and heavily muscled body. "Maxim!" I exclaimed. "How lovely to see you!" Maxim held my shoulders in both of his hands and pulled me into his chest. We held each other tightly, and I was acutely aware that my body was shaking. There was a pain in my throat that wanted to come out, but no matter how much I tried, my voice stayed silent. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say, "I love you," but I had now lost my voice. Maxim held me at arm's length, and tears welled up in both of our eyes. There was no noise, no parrots fighting for fruit, no banging from construction workers on the pyramids. There was just the sound of my heart that was beating in my chest. Maxim was the first to break the spell between us. "Samira, the anticipation of your arrival has been a joy in my heart for so many summers, and now you are here." We both laughed, and while it would have been lovely to walk through the gardens and reminisce about our journeying together, there was so much to do and see. Maxim took my hand and gently pulled me closer to Khufu. "Let me show you around Khufu. The other pyramids, still in their construction, are not safe for you to visit at the moment." As Maxim gesticulated, explaining the perfect mathematics that are applied to the pyramids, I found it difficult to take my gaze from his face. I delighted at how his lips turned up at the corners of his mouth, the shape of his nostrils and his pointed, refined nose, and the tiny grains of sand that were stuck to the wrinkles around his eyes. Eventually, I cleared my throat and turned my attention towards the construction. These are very complex mathematical calculations, Maxim. How did you come by them? I inquired. These structures are a cooperative enterprise between many highly advanced interstellar civilizations, explained Maxim. The geometry and mathematics is ancient and astounding, and actually is systematic all throughout the universe. Maxim pressed the palm of his hand onto the stones. I observed his fingers, the gentleness in his hands, and the red granite dust that had gathered beneath his fingernails. It is the mathematics that are embodied in these structures that reveal the secrets of their origins, he continued. As you will know, Samira, for you have been involved in many of these projects before. I laughed. Of course. However, here on Gaia, I am slowly refamiliarizing myself with Earth's beauty and magnificence. This red granite, or sandstone, Maxim pointed to the base of the pyramid, is an insulation layer. That is so that the electric currents accumulated in the pyramids do not filter down looking for an Earth connection. All electricity seeks to find an Earth. This ensures that the pyramid's energy flows through its system and into the interior. I nodded, not wanting to interrupt, as I could see that Maxim was driven to complete his explanation. Red granite is also called rose granite, Maxim continued, and there are quartz crystals and iron fillings embedded into each stone as they help to expand the electric generation properties of the pyramid. He looked at me and smiled. But now, let us journey inside the pyramid to the Grand Gallery. I want to show you how we move the stones. We entered the pyramid, and reaching the Grand Gallery, an unmistakable feeling coursed through my body. The hairs on my entire body stood up on end as I absorbed the active and electrifying energy. You will have noticed the small cranes on the outside of the other pyramids, inquired Maxim. Yes, I did, but I thought the pyramids were constructed with anti-gravity equipment, I questioned. That is right, said Maxim. However, we use cranes and pulleys as well. The main crane was positioned here, in the Grand Gallery. The crane was anchored, as you can see, in those rectangular holes at the base of the stones. I nodded. Yes, I see. There were pulleys on the main crane. Maxim pointed to an area where the crane used to be. They pulled each individual stone onto the cradle, and when the cradle reached the king's chamber, Maxim moved his arms up above his head. The stones were then moved along a spiral ramp and around the exterior of the building. Oh, Maxim, how wonderful! I encouraged with great interest. And here is the exciting bit. Maxim's voice could barely contain his enthusiasm. We use anti-gravity equipment to semi-levitate the stones. I clasped my hands together. Ah, here is the part that I have been waiting for. The anti-gravity technology is on the four corners of the outside of the pyramid. Maxim's face was a picture of delight. With this energy, we remove the dead weight of the stones and then position them into place. Oh, I love this, Maxim. But why not lift the stones right up and into position? Wouldn't that be easier? And then you wouldn't need to use the pulleys and the cradle. That is a very good question, Samira. Maxim's smile was somehow mischievous. However, he continued, if we removed 100% of the mass weight of the stone, this would destabilize the stones that have already been laid, thereby destabilizing the entire structure. Of course, I conceded. That makes perfect sense. So, a stone weighing 100 tons, continued Maxim, with the use of anti-gravity equipment would temporarily remove at least 95% of its weight to a couple of 100 kilos, and that makes it very easy to move it onto the cradle. And then we use liquid rock to mold the stones into place. This is the mortar that sticks them together. Maxim turned to face me. I am sure that you have seen this technology before, Samira, as it is used extensively on many other planets and civilizations. Indeed it is, Maxim. I recall in many lives on the Pleiades, we use this technology to build our homes. My mind drifted to my beautiful home on the Pleiades. It was formed from liquid rock, taking on the appearance of a massive cave with indoor gardens, waterfalls and streams that meandered through the living quarters. My home had many coloured glass windows, and the light reflected through them and shone onto the water. I looked up into Maxim's eyes. We liquefied sand in a zero-point energy generator, I explained, and after squirting it into place, it dried. But tell me more about your anti-gravity equipment. Maxim's eyes were shining so brightly that I wondered if the sun was striking them through a window. I love that we share this enthusiasm for technology, Maxim said, and then he gave me a wink and squeezed my hand. As you know, every place has major energy concentration nodes in the form of chakras or energy centers. On Earth, Giza Plateau is one such place. The pyramid concentrates the energy into that point or central node, and this is known as zero-point energy. And furthermore, I added, zero-point energy is the energy of Prime Creator that sustains and maintains everything. All planets, moons and suns, said Maxim. In fact, everything is the creative thought of Prime Creator. It is an immense force. It is everywhere. It even creates the motion of the universe, and we call it, here on Earth, gravity. Isn't gravity also called ether? I inquired. In a way, said Maxim, ether is the consciousness of Creator, of all that is. Every living form, every person's consciousness is not only a part of the ether, it is the ether itself. It is a holographic piece of the whole, and although it is a fragment of a whole, it retains all of the attributes and power of the whole. Every holographic piece of the whole, or the ether, has the same power as the whole, and therefore is the whole itself. So, ether is prime creator? I asked. Well, everything is ether, Maxim continued, including the material physical world. The closest manifestation of ether that can be experienced in the physical world is water. Even what Earth scientists call the vacuum of outer space is high-frequency water with complex frequencies of consciousness. It is not an empty space. So ether, which is prime creator, manifests this frequency in the material world as water. So everything starts as ether, I said. That is right, said Maxim. Ether is where all thoughts and ideas exist, so all the potential for all of creation is in the ether. However, gravity is the concentrated conscious attention awareness of prime creator focused on a portal or node, and that creates a larger mass in the material world. Thoughts create mass, said Maxim, so prime creator's thought is the flow of gravity. Ether is the potential, and gravity is how mass, or a body, is formed. And you have harnessed gravity into the pyramids. I rubbed Maxim's arm to show my admiration. Maxim laughed out loud. The pyramids only harness a fraction of prime creator energy, or gravity. However, at a fifth density level, that creates electricity for everything. It is limitless and available to anyone who can receive it without cables. Well, this is how Atlantis and Lemuria are powered, with zero-point energy. The pyramids give off energy in the form of wireless electricity freely to all who need it. I closed my eyes and momentarily travelled into the future to third density Earth. The history of this planet, in fact all of the pyramids, as well as the two Sphinx, were portrayed in such a blasphemous way. I saw soldiers invading the area in the 19th century, blasting holes with dynamite into the entrance, and all of the writings about these times falsified and distorted. The scholars of that time portrayed the pyramids as being constructed with primitive technology by slaves, and stated that the primary use of these magnificent buildings was as tombs for the pharaohs and queens. These preposterous ideas were wielded by the Dark Ones, who came into power to falsify history for the purpose of mind-controlling the human population. And in addition, they distorted the Sumerian tablets, or hieroglyphs, to prevent humanity from knowing the truth. Maxim's soft voice interrupted my thoughts and brought me back into the here and now. The pyramids are also used for portal travel, said Maxim, as well as being markers for the generations to come. I nodded in agreement. The generations to come will need these markers, Maxim, for I sense that many of them might be lost. Maxim took my arm, and after walking outside, we stopped beside one of the magnificent Sphinx. By now, the sun was setting and had cast a golden glow over the polished stones, over the crystal cap that is covered in gold, and over Maxim's golden, tousled hair. "The pyramids," said Maxim, "are a clear statement of advanced civilizations so that the future generations can discover the truth. And that is why we are here, Maxim, to bring the truth." I smiled at Maxim, perhaps holding his gaze for too long, and then diverted my attention upwards to the face of the Sphinx, who was closest to where we were standing. "She is remarkable," I said. "Yes, she is," said Maxim, still looking in my direction. And then he too stared up at the Sphinx. "I remember them," I muttered, with melancholy in my voice, "for they have been sitting here, side by side in this place, for thousands of years." My memories once again drifted into another timeline, some 30,000 years before Christianity's version of Christ. However, instead of journeying forwards in time, I journeyed into the so-called past. I was here when the Sphinx were first erected. The Sphinx were built 28,000 years before the pyramids were constructed. The Sphinx represent the face of a woman and the body of a lion, I said. The lion is the symbol of Egypt, and the two lions together represent Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt, both united as one kingdom. "Yes, Samira," said Maxim, "and the two Sphinx both face east, because they represent the beginning of the Egyptian year that starts in the astrological sign of Virgo, and that is why the sun is born of the Virgin. The Egyptian year ends in the astrological sign of Leo, so the Sphinx have the back of a lion and the front of a woman, Virgo." "And the feet," I continued, "are formed in the shape of eagle claws, symbolizing that this lion woman can fly. However, she also has a firm hold on Egypt." "Did you know," said Maxim, "that the Sphinx are not statues, they are buildings, and beneath these structures are underground constructions?" "Yes," I laughed, "I did know that, Maxim." "Well, Maxim," I said, "the sun is setting and it is time for me to go. I will take my leave and prepare myself for our sojourn in the morning, as we will be time traveling to Atlantis." Maxim and I embraced one another in the setting sun. I could feel our hearts beating together, and as his smell carried on the evening breeze, infusing my entire being, I sighed heavily. I felt so happy to be in my physical body, experiencing these beautiful feelings once again. And so, my journey continues.